Thank you. Please. Thank you. Please. Thank you very, very much. Today,
we're gonna go to 1.2 times. That feels like a good compromise.
the topic of my speech today is deadly serious, and I think it needs to be made at the outset of this campaign. In the winter of 1777, it was harsh and cold as the Continental Army marched to Valley Forge. General George Washington knew he faced the most daunting of tasks. America made a vow: never again would we bow down to a king. Their mission, a sacred cause: freedom, liberty, democracy, American democracy.
To be clear, this is ahistorical. The formation of the United States was not a clear verdict on the extent to which it would be democratic. I mean, obviously only landowning white men could vote to begin with, but even then, there were plenty of people who wanted to essentially just make George Washington a king after he won, considering he was the ruling general. They weren't really fighting for democracy. There was a sort of landowning aristocracy in the colonies that wanted, a bunch of sort of petty generals and leaders in the American colonies felt like they weren't being given their due and wanted to exercise full control without the king breathing down their neck, and so they did, George Washington himself personally did believe in a democracy, yeah, but things very, very well could have worked out differently. Didn't Hamilton want King Washington? Yes! Alexander Hamilton was essentially, a monarchist. Thought that the common men couldn't lead their own affairs, wanted Washington to serve for life, and so on. I think this is another weakness of liberalism, and I will be doing rhetorical critique here. Like the fascist, Biden begins his speech on why he must win with a historical allegory. The problem is that when a fascist invokes national history as a way of winning support from the people listening, it's purely a vibes thing. Fascists will talk about the past that never existed, Like, George Washington did exist, sure, but take a look at your average Roman statue Twitter avatar account and the way they talk about the past. They're just talking about a fucking fantasy world. Like, it's all vibe stuff. There's nothing real there. So feeling does excite people to action. The problem is that liberals don't actually care about Washington. The only people who actually care about, like, the American myth and institutional power to the extent that they would be swayed by listening to Biden, romantically talk about George Washington, we're already going to vote for we're already going to vote for Biden anyway. They're already on his side. I don't feel like this is a good motivator to action. I think that it would be much better to lean towards populism, the thing everybody's doing right now, with a, listen, you love your nice safe home. You love your family, right? They're going to kill you, Jack. They're going to kill you, Jack. Take a look at the GOP. Look at them. Look what they're doing. They're going to kill you. They're going to eat you. There are plenty of rhetorical approaches that would be more effective than, like, I don't know, jerking off Founding Father. Especially since Founding Father worship is actively kind of repulsive to a lot of younger voters, especially, Basically, if you're 20 or younger, it's pretty much guaranteed that at some point you've shared a classroom with somebody who interrupted a historical lesson of the Founding Fathers with, but they were slavers, which they were.
Trump's not concerned about your future, I promise you. Trump is now promising a full-scale campaign of revenge and retribution, his words, for some years.
I think a big issue rhetorically with this and with the Democrats' approach broadly is that it's always framed as a Trump thing when it is fully an entire political party and about a third the population of this country falling in line with a fascist agenda that Trump is the convenient figurehead of, but is not even the ideological center of, like, not even close. Donald Trump is not, this is like, people say Trumpism isn't an ideology. Trumpism is an alignment, like the ideals that are driving the GOP are fully just a cabal of just white supremacist or nationalist billionaires that have been funneling money into conservative political causes for literal decades. Not even a conspiracy. It's open. It's very clear, with the intention of preserving their capital interest by keeping the Republicans extremely anti-taxes, pro-privatization. And how do you do that most effectively? Well, it's not very effective running as a politician purely on the basis that you're going to cut taxes for the wealthy, so you have to run on social issues. And guys, you'll never guess which social issues billionaires will pay you to push alongside their pro-business preferences. It's that. Trump is just the loud, boisterous, sort of charisma vacuum that ended up being at the head of this movement. If Trump didn't exist, somebody else would have been Trump. All the material forces that are pushing in this direction, they continue regardless.
He went on to say he'd be a dictator on day one. I mean, if I were writing a book of fiction, I said an American president said that, and not in jest. He called, and I quote, the termination.
He did say that, by the way. Donald Trump made a joke that he wouldn't be a dictator if he got back in power, except on day one. This is vague enough to be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. Obviously, people have sort of waved that off as him being like, oh, he's being facetious or whatever. But the more radical elements of the right wing have interpreted this as the storm, the QAnon, essentially the day of the rope. The Donald Trump is signaling that once he attains power, the first day will be his enemies hanging from lampposts, and then after that, he can be, America's true leader because he's purged the deep state.
He calls those who oppose him vermin. He talks about the blood of America as being poisoned, echoing the same exact language used in Nazi Germany.
My policy of making constant comparisons to the Nazis vindicated by the President of the United States. Thank you. Love to see this straight from the top at long last. After 5 years of watching my channel, now at long last, Biden is taking the pointers.
Now the rest of us, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we have to make our choice. I know mine, and I believe I know America's. We'll defend the truth, not give in to the big lie. We'll embrace the Constitution and the Declaration, not abandon it.
So this is what I mean by institutionalism. This is a deference to concepts like the Constitution, or I should say to truth. People don't get motivated to do anything for the truth. The truth is a kind of abstract, it's effective on an interpersonal level, but we're talking, what are people willing to die for? And the answer is rarely the truth. Usually for family or country or some specific anxiety or whatever. The truth is always complicated enough that people are going to get a bit kind of like trepidatious around it. Nobody wants to beat Republicans because they care about the truth. I'll be clear. I think the truth is great, okay? The main reason I want the Republicans to lose is so they don't kill us. That's the main reason. If the truth, the relative truth values, you could arrange a situation in which the Republicans are mostly truthful but are also genocidal, and the rhetoric around their genocide is fairly straightforward. Like, they just say it. And the Democrats are milquetoast and middlingly honest in the way that they sometimes are. And in that case, truth would still be, because the truth isn't the operating factor here. The genocide is the main thing I'm avoiding. So yeah, it's about what gets people up out of bed in the morning. Look, every political ideology claims to hold a monopoly on the truth, right? That's kind of the point of an ideology to a large extent, okay? But for the most part, you don't really see Republicans galvanizing people off of calls like this, right? It's not about stuff like, yeah, we need to win so the truth prevails. Not usually stuff like that. It's usually a lot more, gritty, a lot more like personal and bloody, We need to win so they don't destroy our nation. We need to win, so the deep state doesn't prevail. The truth is implicit, but there's usually something a bit more pressing than the truth itself they're pushing for,
We're living in an era where a determined minority is doing everything in its power to try to destroy our democracy for their own agenda. The American people know it, and they're standing bravely in the breach. Remember after 2020, January 6th insurrection to undo the election, in which more Americans had...
The speech is incredibly weak. It's Hillary Trump bad rhetoric. I disagree. It's nowhere near as bad as Hillary. The main thing that I would do to improve it, and the main thing that Democrats hate doing because they hate winning and they hate life and they all want to curl up into a ball and suck their thumbs, is that I think that Democrats should more aggressively ridicule and lambast Republican leaders for not doing anything for their constituents. It's go on and on about how it's every cultural point. First it's this destroying the country, then that, then you hear about this, and what changes? Nothing. You get these people that get you angry, they give you nothing, because all they care about is getting your vote, and that's it. Point out the fact that Donald Trump didn't really do much during his presidency, Like, mock inconsistencies, you know? They say they won't take the vaccine. They don't like the lockdowns. Well, you know what? Donald Trump was the one who came up with Operation Warp Speed. He pushed the vaccine. He still does, you know? They just don't want you to linger on it because it might make you question. Stuff like that. Like, lean on shit like that. I think that's much more effective. You don't want to insult the average Republican voter because that's just it's just bad political theory. And, you know, you don't want to limit your insults just to Trump because it's more than just a Trump issue. I think that you should force, you know, I think that you should, you know, make an issue of that, essentially, make a mockery of it.
Trump says he doesn't understand. Well, he still doesn't understand the basic truth. That is, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your country only when you win.
This bothers me again, too, because Republicans don't love their country. They love white supremacy, the idea of curb stomping black people, deporting brown people, whatever, I don't know, having sex with a trans person and then doing a hate crime against them, whatever they think, whatever occupies the mind of Republicans. They don't love this country. And frankly, the average Democrat doesn't either. Again, institutional appeals just don't work that well to the average person. It's too big. It's too abstract. You need to appeal to people's direct and immediate interests, fears, insecurities, whatever else, you know? I don't like this, like, this hypocritical, you know, they claim to love it, but they lost and they should accept that. Like, it's just too basic. Yeah, and I agree, some of you. It's too divorced from self-interest. Is that why I want Republicans to lose? Because they aren't consistent in loving the country, whether or not they win or lose? No, I don't care how they feel about it. That I don't care even a little about that.
Together, we can keep proving that America is still a country that believes in decency, dignity, honesty, honor, truth. We still believe that no one, not even the president, is above the law. We still believe, the vast majority of us still believe that everyone deserves a fair...
And stuff like this, too. The idea of a monarch being held below the law was impressive back during the Magna Carta or whatever, but the idea of a sort of legalist regime is the norm everywhere. I mean, even in openly authoritarian governments like the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, there was still an effort to present the rule of the leader in the context of legality, you know? Like, no, they didn't want anyone thinking Stalin or Hitler was walking around like some sultan waving their arm and doing stuff. It was all, you know, for the Republic. It was all procedural. So this, again, this is like, it's too... I mean, you're essentially asking people to, like, conjure a historical comparison from before the Enlightenment in order for this to... It's just a phrase, really. It's an empty phrase. No one's above the law. Okay, so what you're saying is that they did a crime. Okay, then just say that. But it's being delivered at the end of a statement. I don't know. I guess it's just frustrating to me that, like, Donald Trump will go up on stage and he'll be like, the immigrants are going to kill you. Transgender homosexuals are raping your kids. You need to vote for me or there's not even going to be a country. And then, like, and Biden is, like, talking about how, you know, the greatness of the American spirit must continue to be lived forward, whether or not he wins. Yeah, like, it's not just an energy thing. It's just, again, like, how well can you pull on people's heartstrings?
Democracy is still a sacred cause, and there's no country in the world better positioned to lead the world than America. That's why I've said it many times. That's why I've never been more optimistic about our future, and I've been doing this a hell of a long time. Just to remember who we are, with patience and fortitude.
Oh, this rhetoric is so trash. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've said this before. A lot of people ask me, like liberals, they ask this, they gurgle this at me through their sort of slimy, you know, their sort of mucus. What's a gross word for a hole, but isn't just hole? Because that's a horny word now. Orifice. Yeah, I guess orifice. Yeah, I think I was struggling for the word orifice there. Yeah, they're gurgling a slimy orifice. They ask me, well, what do you have Biden do to oppose the Republicans? You know, like, what would you actually meaningfully do? And the main thing that Biden and the Democrats don't do is they don't talk. Rhetorically, they get encircled by the Republicans. The Republicans get to decide the news every single day. They decide the talking points. They're running laps around them. You know, the Republicans might be fucking retards, but being retarded doesn't keep you out of the Oval Office. That's the whole thing.